Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. I've said over and over on this show that I think the coronavirus panic is a little too extreme. Closing down businesses, stranding students at home, risking the economy of the United States over a threat that has affected, not fatally, mind you, only 163,000 Americans out of 330 million at last count. Well, more and more people I talk to are asking the same question. Is it overreaction? Maybe. There are, however, exceptions to everything I just said. If you are elderly or you have an underlying health problem, or if you're in a household with somebody at risk like that, then yes, you should be concerned, very, very concerned. And today on The Big Picture, I want to talk to an example of a group who is very much at risk. So it's my pleasure to welcome Judy Christian, the president and CEO of the Lupus Alliance of Upstate New York. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The first question that I have, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are thinking the same thing, everybody's kind of heard of lupus, but I don't know the specifics, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know specifically what lupus is. Can you give us a little background on exactly what that is?
Sure can. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. It is, our immune system protects us from viruses and invasion, right? It makes us not get sick. That's in its best capacity. In a person who has lupus, the immune system gets confused. It's not underproductive, it's more overproductive. It gets confused and starts attacking the person's own body. So it could attack your skin, your blood, your organs, your joints. There really isn't anything it can't affect in your body. So lupus is something we call a spectrum disease, where somebody might have a very mild case of lupus and someone might have a very severe case. There is no cure for lupus, not yet. Actually, I like to say there is no known cure for lupus. I believe there's a cure, we just haven't found it. It takes an average of 6 years to be diagnosed with lupus. That is, think about that for a moment. You can be sick for 6 years. Average, for some people it's decades, and not know what's bothering you. And this isn't a small sickness.
Is it something that, now how do they test for lupus? How do they say that this is lupus as opposed to another disease which is manifested in the same way? I mean, the immune system, like in Crohn's disease, the immune system is reacting to an inflammation in the intestines, and it basically overreacts and closes things down and so on. Lupus can manifest itself, as I think you're saying, in many, many different ways. And so the disease is basic, but the symptoms are spread all over the place, so you
Absolutely.
Never know.
So one of the reasons that it's so difficult to diagnose is because it mirrors so many other diseases. And there are about 1,000 or more different autoimmune diseases. They're all under this huge umbrella, and they all sort of have interchangeable symptoms. The testing, the ANA, anti-nucleic antibody test, is a test that some rheumatologists or primary care physicians will give to someone who's displaying symptoms. And unfortunately, that test gives a false positive for 30% of the population. It is also a manual test, so there is human error in that test. And sometimes your symptoms are very, very minor, and while you're at the doctor's, and then you go home and you have a lupus flare. And you identify other things that are going on with you, but you don't think they have anything to do with lupus or each other at all, so you fail to tell your doctor about this. The best thing an ANA does is that it can give you a positive, and you know where you're at, okay? And then the doctor can start working with you. The other thing it does is, when it gives you a positive, just in case you're part of the 30% that doesn't have lupus, it tells the doctor to look for other markers, look for other symptoms. If I have a rash on my face, I'm going to go to a dermatologist. Eventually, the rash is going to go away with treatment, right? If I have achy joints and I tell my doctor that, the doctor's going to say it may be arthritis, you need to lose weight, right?
Right.
Those are the things the
Right.
doctor's
Yep.
going to say,
Right.
right? So if I get sores in my mouth, I'm going to go to a drugstore and get a rinse because I think they're canker sores. They're not. All three of those things are signs of lupus. Who would think that?
Wow.
Who
Yeah.
would think that? Hair loss, which at my age isn't unheard of. If you're in nonprofit, it's stressful. That's not unheard of either.
Tell me about
right,
that.
Right. So loss of hair, a low-grade temperature with no apparent reason, achy joints, extreme fatigue, the kind of fatigue that no matter how much you sleep, you don't wake up refreshed. And that's episodic. That is a lupus flare, where all of these things come together, sores in the mouth and extreme fatigue. And here's the worst part of all of this. It doesn't all happen at once. It doesn't all happen the same. It doesn't follow any standard progression. And there are about 11 common symptoms. There are more than that, but there are 11 common symptoms to lupus. I might walk down a freezer section in a supermarket and my fingertips would turn very, very white, and chalky white, like your shirt white, and then maybe purple. Might happen to my nose and my toes as well.
Wow.
That's Raynaud's syndrome, which is part of lupus. Sjogren's is dry eye and dry mouth. Well, you see ads on TV about dry eye and dry mouth all the time, and you think, oh, that's just that, right?
Yeah.
This could be part of lupus. All of these things have to be tracked in order to get to a diagnosis.
I want to get to how the coronavirus is impacting the population at risk, and specifically with lupus. But one more question along these lines, and that is, when somebody is diagnosed with lupus, are they being treated, and is the treatment for lupus, or is just the treatment for the symptoms that you've mentioned?
Because there is no cure for lupus, anything that is being given to you is to treat the symptoms and prevent the disease from advancing.
And if the disease advances, what are the consequences of that? Your system expands its immune reactions, and many symptoms manifest at one time, or how does that?
It can, again, it's different for everyone. I know someone very dear to the lupus community. She is an amazing, inspirational person. She is strong as can be. She had to have heart surgery. She's had to have a kidney transplant. Her kidney lasted 10 years. Now she's up for another one. She's had to have her shoulder replaced. And this woman continues to do for everybody in the community. She's had a very difficult life, a very challenging life, and her description of her life is that she has a very blessed life because she's been able to manage this. Everyone is different. There are people who will have lupus who will try to hide from it, and because they don't feel empowered to control the things in their lives that they can to help them lead a more proactive, positive, healthier lifestyle, their symptoms are going to get worse. Some people mistakenly think, I won't take the medicine because the side effects of the medicine are horrible and I would rather just deal with lupus. Where the medicine, while the side effects may be difficult, are preventing lupus from advancing to other parts of your body, maybe taking an organ. There is no exact science to this. Luckily, there's a great deal of research taking place, but it took more than 50 years for one medicine to be passed specifically for the treatment of lupus, and it's not effective on everyone.
Wow. What percentage of the population is affected by this disease?
So I'm glad you asked that, sort of, because they say that it's 1 in 200 people. Everyone that works in autoimmune disease pretty much will tell you it's probably twice that.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And all the different aspects of it, the different ways that it can manifest and the lack of treatment, it's a complicated thing, and I can see where it can weigh heavily on someone. And the current situation that we're going through, people with lupus are at risk normally because if they get something, the immune system is compromised, right?
Yes. So when you take a medicine to help keep your immune system from attacking itself, that means you're suppressing it. You're suppressing the immune system. So that makes you more vulnerable to everything else that you can catch from someone else as well. So what we as a society are going through right now, social distancing, so that we don't transmit germs to each other, so that we don't get sick, or then we might get, okay, if we're not being socially distant. The difference is when this is over with the pandemic, and it will be, the lupus patient will continually have to do that for the rest of their lives, every single day. And it's not just about pandemic stuff. If I had the flu and you had lupus and I gave you the flu, you could land in the hospital. That is critical, and that is something that people are not understanding. And I don't want this to be all about, I do want it to be all about the lupus community, because not nearly enough is done for the lupus community. But I also want other people to understand this, the things we do for ourselves right now during the pandemic, washing our hands, making sure we're clean, making sure we're not around people who are sick, being cognizant of the special challenges to other people, older people and people with autoimmune disease. Just because someone doesn't look sick, and that's another thing I'd like to talk to you about, but just because someone doesn't look sick doesn't mean that they're not compromised.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
We had an interview earlier in the week with a doctor, and his daughter was infected, and she tested positive. She went through the entire sequence of high fever and coughing, and ultimately she recovered, feels fine now, but she's a student at UB, and nobody around her was manifesting any symptoms whatsoever. No. So, and she has the slightest idea who she came in contact with to get this. So we know that somebody out there had that virus and then basically passed it on, but probably didn't even know they had it.
More than this gal, and this gal probably passed it to other people as well, because she didn't know.
Right.
And she does it unwittingly.
Right.
So at the very least, now we're going to be way more aware about our impact on other people when we're not feeling well, at the very least. What I'm hoping is that when all of this is over with, people have a new understanding of what it is to be autoimmune compromised.
Well, if people have questions about this, and I'm sure there are a million questions that I haven't asked yet, how can they reach out to you and get information?
So our website is lupusupstateny.org.
Okay.
That's our website.
And we'll put that on the screen.
Okay, and our phone number, 800-300-4198. And I will ask anybody that's calling now, please make sure you do not go to extension 2, go to extension 1, because our office is in lockdown, and I'm the person handling all the calls, and it will come directly to me. So, and I will respond. I will respond.
Well, that's terrific, because there are a lot of questions about this. I know I had questions. I've heard of lupus, and I've known people with lupus, but I've never really known any of the details, and that's interesting. We should know about these things. And as I said at the beginning of the program, there are certain things that should be taken very seriously with this virus. A lot of people can go on and live their lives normally, but you have to be very concerned about who you come into contact with and how that happens. So.
And this is interesting. I've been with the organization for 4 years, and I went back to an organization. I hadn't seen anybody. I'd moved back. I went away. I went to work to DC for a while, and then I came back home. And I came back with a large group that I had been associated with before I left, and I mentioned what I was doing, and someone I'd known for more than 20 years says, "Oh, I have lupus." I had no idea. I had no idea, because you don't look sick when you have lupus. And here's that's one of the problems. You go into a doctor's office and you say, "I'm not feeling well at all," and they're looking at you and you're looking great, right? So now immediately there are doubts triggered. The worst part is your own family and circle of friends will also doubt it. If I tell you, if we're friends and we make plans to go to a concert and we paid money to go to this concert and we're excited about it, and at the very last minute I tell you, I can't go, I'm too tired.
Yeah. Maybe they'll think that you're a hypochondriac or something along those lines.
Okay, because it's too tired this week, and last week when we were supposed to go for a walk, your knee was bothering you, and you know, whatever. All of these things, all of these things are there and not visible.
Well, as usual, time goes very quickly, and you know, that's it for this segment of the Big Picture. I want to thank Judy Christian for being my guest, the CEO of the Lupus Alliance of Upstate New York. So get in touch if you have any questions. We'll put that information on our website and on the screen again. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the crisis is creating actually more jobs in certain areas. Stay tuned.